Hey everyone, it's Eric at Austin Custom Brass. Welcome to this tour of Adams trombones. I'm going to talk today about the Adams Tenor Trombone. We've been at several different trade shows recently, and it's really cool because what's happened is we've ended up with a bunch of Adams trombones in the shop. Adams is one of the premier trombone makers in the world, one of the premier brass makers. You may be familiar with their euphoniums, their flugelhorns, of course their percussion, but trombones. They make amazing trombones. So I wanted to go through the different bell options, the different slide options, some of the different valve options, do some playing for you. But you can see behind me I have some of the altos, bass behind me, which is really cool. It's a double Hogman, and of course all these beautiful different tenors with different bell options, different configurations. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So thank you to Adams. We love them. They're awesome. They make amazing instruments. I'm really excited to do this for you today. So we're going to start our journey with the Adams Sonic Trombone. The Adams Sonic Trombone is not a customized trombone, but it's a wonderful playing instrument. There's some really cool things about it that I really like. Adams believes strongly that everybody should have the opportunity to play a well-made instrument that sounds great, that allows them to progress, to play, to achieve their musical goals, regardless of where they are. So for somebody that isn't quite ready to invest in that custom-made trombone, the Adams Sonic is an awesome choice. So it's a handmade bell in the Netherlands. All the parts are made in the factory in the Netherlands, but the bell is handmade, so very similar to the custom line. It is a rotary valve, yellow brass, one piece, yellow brass on our tuning slides, open wrap, and then you can see it's a yellow outer slide with the nickel crook. Beautiful instrument. Adams has many different options that you can pick from for your customizable horn. I'm going to start with the bell materials. So in my hand I have one of the yellow brass. This one is a 0.60 gauge, which is the most common. If you'd like it a little bit lighter, of course that's available to you. The yellow brass, I think that this profile is very close. It's very akin to the Bach 42 in the sound. So I think that it's great for somebody that's looking for an orchestral sounding horn. If that's what you're interested in, I think that the yellow brass would be fantastic for you. The next option is the gold brass bell. Not only does it look beautiful, but it's one of my favorites to play. It commonly comes in either 0.55 or a little bit heavier, the 0.60. Of course, you can pick that option, whichever you would like. The gold brass bell, what I really like about it is I think that it profiles very, very close to the sound of the classic Elkhart era Con 88H and the Con 8H. In fact, there's a video, different video of me playing a 67 Elkhart 8H against one of these Adams, and I think that you'll agree that the sound is very, very similar. I find that it gives a lot of life to the horn. I think that it's wonderful if you're interested in an all-around horn, something that you can play as a soloist, something that you can play in wind ensemble, something that you can play even in jazz band, and of course in orchestra. It's a really magnificent bell. It's one of my favorites. So the next bell I'm going to talk about, both of them are two-piece bells. They're both going to have the red brass, and then this one has nickel silver. The other one's going to be a sterling silver. The nickel usually comes in 0.55 gauge. I really appreciate how dark the sound, how full it is, but I also like how much you can drive the horn. You can really push on this horn, and it's not going to break. It's actually the bell that I went with for myself. And you might be asking, well, why didn't you go with the gold brass? You just said how much you love that. Well, because I already own an Elkhart 67 8H and it has that sound profile, I wanted to have something a little bit different, a different, kind of color in my palette to choose from. So I went with this one, and I'm really happy that I did. This beautiful instrument is the red brass with the sterling silver two-piece bell, so sterling silver flare, and the stem is red brass. This particular one is 0.60 gauge. Again, you can get these things in different weights for yourself. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful horn, wonderful life to it. Really, this is probably more of an all-around type sound than the red brass with the nickel, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So one of the cool things is Adams does solid sterling silver one-piece bells, like this trombone. This is 0.55 on the gauge. Again, they're available in different weights. Tons of energy out of this bell. Really, really cool horn. So this is a relatively new bell concept for Adams. It's really cool. So it's the cut bell, screw bell. This particular one happens to be the yellow bell stem and the sterling silver flare. Some people really like the effect that the cut bell has on the resonance of the trombone bell. Of course, it makes it easier to put into a case, into a screw bell case, a little bit smaller, easier for travel. And one other nice thing is that you can kind of mix and match your flares so you can make a more versatile all-around type of horn. If this interests you, let us know. We can work with you, work with Adams, and put something like that together for you. The next customizable feature available to you on the Adams trombones is the type of valve. They offer 3 valves, Schmidt on the rotary, they offer a Hogmann, and then a axial flow. So this is the Schmidt, the rotary. I'll bring that up close for you. Nice compact throw, very comfortable, easy. One thing that I like about it is here and here, you'll notice it's adjustable. So right there with the slots, I can move this up and down to fit my particular needs, and then rotate the thumb brace to, again, fit my particular needs. I really like that feature. I think it's ingenious really on their part. It's so annoying when you get a trombone, you're like, I love everything about it, but it doesn't fit my hand. This allows you to fit your hand, which I think is wonderful. The next valve option available to you is the Hogmann valve. Hogmann valve is used by all sorts of different makers. It's magnificent, really easy to use. The response is wonderful. It's very smooth, wonderful sound, incredibly responsive. I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. So nice compact throw. See the rotor on this side, the outside. And I'm going to open this up so this just pops off. You can see on the inside. And the third option available to you is the axial flow valve. I'm going to bring that up for you to take a look at so you can see a little bit closer. These are really popular. They have been for quite a while. With the Adams trombones, they all come standard with a yellow main tuning slide. However, you can add on an additional tuning slide. I have 3 in my hand. There's the red brass, they also come in gold brass, the sterling silver, and then here's the standard yellow. Adams offers a few different options with their slides. They have different bore sizes, so there's the single bore at 547. They also have the dual bore, which is 547 to 562. They also have a few different metal options for you on your outer slide. You can either choose yellow brass or nickel on the outer. The nickel's a little bit lighter The yellow brass is a little bit heavier, maybe retains a little bit darker sound to the trombone with it. Then on the crook, you have your choice of yellow crook, yellow brass crook, or nickel crook. Generally, they balance the two, where if you have the yellow brass outer, they'll do the nickel crook, and if you do the nickel outer, they'll do the yellow brass. But again, these options are available to you. Bring those up a little bit closer for you to look at. The final option offered on all Adams horns is the finish. So there's a few different options. You can go with the clear lacquer, you can go with a satin finish, there's an antique finish, all sorts of different options. Today with me, I only have the lacquer. That's kind of the standard for most trombones, but we've had a very, very cool one come through that had a satin lacquer that was gorgeous, and I've seen with the antique finish as well, and that was amazing looking. So this Adams trombone is the yellow brass 0.60 gauge. It has yellow brass tuning slide, actual flow, and this slide is the nickel outer with the brass crook and single bore 547. So I just switched out to the dual bore, but it's still going to be the nickel with the brass. So the only thing that changed is now it's a 547, 562. This trombone is the gold brass. This particular gauge is 0.60 gauge. I'm going to play it against one that's a 0.55 in a moment. The Hogmann valve, and this one has the yellow brass tuning slide. And this is the single bore slide again with the nickel and the brass crook. Same bell setup, 0.60 on the gold brass. This is the dual bore slide now. So this one is gold brass again. However, this is a 0.55 on the gauge, so a little bit lighter than the other one. This one also has a gold brass on the tuning slide and Schmidt rotary valve. Back to the single bore on the slide with nickel and the yellow brass on the crook. So what differences did I find between the different gauge, 0.60 or 0.55 on the gold brass? A few. I thought they were both beautiful, rich, full sounds. The 0.60, the little bit heavier, I felt had just a little bit more weight to it, maybe just a little bit more depth. but I could feel the difference on it. The 0.55 just felt a little bit lighter, a little bit more nimble. Wasn't quite maybe as deep in tone, but I didn't feel like I lost a whole lot. I feel like the 0.60 is probably better if you're really going to be more focused on classical. The 0.55 would serve better as an all-purpose. I think I could get away with playing jazz on this horn, on the 0.55. It reminds me a little bit more of that Elkhart sound on that classic 8H or 88H sound from the 60s. Let's see. Okay, it felt free, it felt easy to play. I didn't feel like I was working extra hard. Let's go back to the Adams Gold Brass 0.60, try the same tune, Just Friends. See what we think. Not bad, I could do it. It didn't feel quite as light. I could feel the extra weight in the gauge. Now, I think that in orchestral music, wind ensemble, classical playing, that extra weight might be advantageous to you. But I think for an all-purpose, the 0.55 is going to give you more of what you want, at least when it comes to the gold brass. Okay, so this is the red brass with the nickel flare. It's going to have the yellow brass on the main tuning slide, Meinl Schmidt, and this one is the yellow brass with the nickel, and it's a dual bore slide. So this trombone is very similar to the last one I just played. It's going to be the red brass again, 0.55 gauge with the nickel silver flare. However, a few differences. It has red brass main tuning slide, axial flow, and the slide this time is single bore, and it's going to be nickel outer with nickel crook. I did actually notice a pretty significant difference in the weight. So if you're looking for a lightweight slide, the nickel-nickel option is probably your best choice. This is the last one on the red brass option. So the red brass, again, this one's a little bit heavier. It's 0.60 on the gauge. And this one has the sterling silver. We are back to the yellow main tuning slide, Hogmann valve. And this is a dual bore on the slide with the yellow and then nickel crook. Really like the response of this. It's different than with the nickel. Again, like I talked about a little bit earlier, I feel like this could give me a little bit more all-purpose, whereas the nickel flare just a little bit a little bit darker. Even though this is a little bit heavier gauge, it plays very light, very nimble. I really like the response. I like both of them. Like I said, I chose the red brass with the nickel, but I think that if I'm playing them, trying them on other things, on something like jazz where I need to be just a little bit more nimble, I think you'll hear the difference. Back to the yellow brass with the nickel silver. Dual bore again, because the last one I played was on a dual bore, so we'll stay consistent with the slide. So not bad. Very similar experience to what I had with the 0.60, 0.55 on the gold brass. Even though this one is lighter at 0.55 than the red brass with the silver at 0.60, I felt like the silver flare just had a little bit more life to it that was more conducive towards jazz. I feel like maybe if I went with a lighter slide on this, perhaps the nickel single bore, maybe that would help compensate for it. But again, I feel like this combination, the red brass with the nickel silver, is much more of a classical sort of approach, where the red brass with the silver can give you a really nice all-around sound approach. So that brings me to the trombone with the solid sterling silver bell, 0.55 gauge. This one is configured with a gold brass tuning slide, Meinl Schmidt valve, and it is the single bore with the nickel outer and the yellow brass crook on the slide. And that brings me to the cut bell, the screw bell, with the yellow brass, sterling silver, yellow brass in the main tuning slide, Hogmann valve. This one has the single bore with the nickel and the yellow brass. Thank you for joining me on this tour of the Adams Tenor Trombones. It was my pleasure to present them to you. You're always welcome to come into our shop in Kansas City, Missouri and try them out. Any of the ones that I played today are available and for sale. We'd be happy to help you custom build the horn as well. You can give us a call if you're not in the Kansas City area, 816-410-0826. We're happy to help you with that process. You can also email info@austinCustomBrass.com. It'll be our pleasure to help connect you with an Adams trombone. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful for you. It was my pleasure again to present it.